Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. I am Lisa Jones. I'm the program coordinator with West Virginia University's Extension Small Farm Center, which is just a unit under our Ag and Natural Resources Division. So thank you for joining the 6-week webinar series. It is designed to increase your marketing knowledge of affordable and effective strategies that, as a vendor, you can use at a farmer's market to hopefully increase your sales. So we did put it out there that the first 20 participants registered would be eligible for a $500 mini grant, and that will be through our partners at the West Virginia Farmers Market Association. The participation in the virtual trainings is required to receive that mini grant, and you also have to track your sales data um, to receive the mini grant. And that is because we are aggregating that information. So you will not be picked out as an individual. It will all be anonymous, but we do want to make sure that we are able to show that hopefully these trainings do increase your sales after you implement the strategies. So we want you to either be able to show us your sales last year or already for the season if your season has kicked off, and then we can show a before and after as part of the training. So those are really that goals outlined. We do want to recognize that all of this is through specific funding. We want to give a big thank you and shout out to our funders of this particular grant project that is making the training possible and all of these mini grants possible. And I also, of course, want to thank our partner organization on this, the West Virginia Farmers Market Association. They will be doing the management of the mini grants for the project, which is really helping reduce the paperwork burden for any participants and producers on this project. So as participants, what I want to just upfront say, these are the types of things that we will be learning about over the 6 weeks. If you have additional things you want to hear about or you want to learn or additional resources that you really want to be able to take advantage of, let us know. You can either put things in the chat box, you can email me, you can call me if you wish, and we can chat about these things because we really want to know as we go through this process what is super helpful for you, what additional things you are in need of, because that helps us plan future trainings. And it also helps us know what types of links you need, handouts. If you want us to come to your farmer's market and do a review, if you want us to assess your booth, we can do all of these things. I just need to know what your needs are. So lots and lots of feedback is really appreciated as we go through this process. So as participants, we hope to teach you about marketing plans, how to tell your story, how to enhance your display at a farmer's market, what the psychology of sales are whenever a customer comes through that market and is looking at your booth, and then really how to build relationships within your community. So real, I mean, it boosts your sales, but it also will boost overall farmers market sales. So I do want to make sure that I put out there, we are doing this as an online recorded virtual series, 6 different sessions, but we will also have 2 hands-on workshops in the state, one more in the northern section, one more in the southern section. And I am still up for suggestions. If we have people that are in certain areas, we know we can concentrate trainings. We have a bunch of different locations identified, but we haven't officially nailed down that date. So if you're here, do me a favor, please in the chat box, go ahead and say where you're located, or if there's a particular area that you normally go to for trainings, if you're close to Charleston or Huntington or Morgantown or Martinsburg or Lewisburg, just like the major places that you might go to, or if you're further out, that's fine too. Just let us know if you have a particular area that's easy for you to get to for these trainings as we get these hands-on workshops finalized, because we do want you to be able to come, learn, and then and play with us and show like what have you learned about setting up a display, and how to do it with us and the tools that we have, and that way hopefully some of that also transfers to what you do with your own individual displays. So as we go through the series, let me know if you have any particular questions or concerns moving forward. I do want to put out 2 different poll questions. I'll leave my contact information up for now. And that way, if you want to access it or take a screenshot or something, you can. But I'm going to go ahead and launch 2 poll questions right now. And we're going to launch the first one. And it's just to get an idea of how confident you feel with some of this information right now. So we can look at like a before and after. And that way we know a little bit if this training is what you're looking for. So on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest, what is your confidence level? What's your understanding of this particular topic? Or how do you feel about like logos, labels, certifications for your farm business, thinking about West Virginia grown and a variety of others? What are you feeling? Let me know. Let me know where you're at today.
Lisa, we have a question in the chat box. How do they know if they are one of the first 20 people registered for the mini grant?
Okay, yes. So I have gone through, we have a list of when everyone registered, and I have given that to our partners at the West Virginia Farmers Market Association. I'm going to see if we have any wiggle room to go beyond 20. So we're going to work on that just because we did have quite a few people register, which is really exciting. But I do only have so much individual money to give out to farmers. After that, we're going to try and give out like some supplies. Because we do have a little bit of also money for supplies. But they will be following up with you with an email and letting you know you're included in that first 20. So look for that in a couple days. Holly, does that sound good? Within the week.
Yes, it's almost done. I do have a question though. There is someone there on the phone, and I just wondered if that person could identify themselves so I can put it in the attendance.
And if you are chiming in from the phone, normally you do have to press *6 to come
It's
off
Bonnie
of
Johnson Monday.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
There was another question. Do they need to attend all of the sessions?
So I am requesting that you attend at least 3 of the 6. So Holly is joining us from the Farmers Market Association to help track attendance. So if you are one of those people that is trying to get the mini grant funds, we do want to make sure that you are able to attend the majority of the trainings, which in this case we have 6. So if you can get to at least 3 of them, it doesn't have to be every single week, but it is great if you come through the majority of them, and that way we know you're getting the education that we think is critical for you to implement these strategies to make those sales changes on your farm. So that's what we're requesting. We are recording these. I am going to put them all on YouTube, and that way if you want to come back and reference them, you can. Or if you have any kind of challenges with that, let me know. You can reach me at this contact information. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now. And then I'm going to start our second question, which is very similar. So again, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest, how do you feel confidence-wise? Thinking about your understanding of marketing strategies to increase your sales at a farmer's market. Excellent. Thank you all for chiming in. I really appreciate that. We use that as part of our recording to our grant funders to show them whether these types of things are valuable. So again, your feedback is so wonderful. Thank you so much. Feel free to keep using that chat box. I'll keep an eye on it. I am going to go ahead and switch over. I'm going to end this poll and switch over to our main presenter. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay, and I will start sharing. Lisa, I will ask when I'm sharing, I probably won't see the chat box as well. So feel free, anyone, to interrupt me, ask a question. It'll be way more fun I get to talk about the stuff you want to hear about. Oops, I need to go back one. Okay. Can everyone see okay? Yeah? All right, I'm going to get started. I want to thank everyone for coming to join us during their lunchtime today. My name is Kacey Gantzer. I'm a planning coordinator for the Department of Agriculture, and I'm also the vice president of the West Virginia Farmers Market Association board. And my favorite thing in the world is farmers markets. So I'm really excited to be with you today. I'm going to focus on a few different topics, but most importantly, I want today to talk to you about your branding of your farm business as a whole. Sometimes as farmers market vendors, we don't look at the big picture and we get really focused maybe on our products or maybe making things that are as pleasant as they can, visually appealing, but maybe not always consistent. And I want you to know, if you are a person selling a few jams at a farmer's market, or you have a traveling mobile farmer's market, it's all the same. You are branding your farm, and what you create, what you grow, what you make, what you design, all needs to come together. So today I'm going to talk about the things that you can sell mostly made in your home at farmers markets. We're going to talk about farm-raised meats, produce, value-added goods, but most importantly, we're going to talk about marketing and your label. So the first thing we need to know for a successful business is we got to do it legally. We have to make sure everything we are putting out there to the public falls under any kind of parameter, what it is. Maybe it needs a registration. Maybe it has a required label. Luckily, you live in West Virginia and you are vendors at farmers markets in West Virginia. We have some of the most friendly laws in the country. Today, we're going to look at a couple different product categories to see how easy it really is to sell these products from your home. And really, the main requirement we're going to learn about today is what goes on that label. So we're going to talk about things that have to be on the label, but way more excitingly, we're going to talk about things that can be added to that label. So right here, I have a little sample of our West Virginia grown directory. These are both from up here in my region, Uncle Bunk's and Family Roots Farm. As a member of West Virginia Grown, you get a page like this in our directory, which is shared statewide. I will tell you, I go through about 100 of them every single week. It's a pretty amazing book. We have over 300 members now who are eligible to be in our West Virginia Grown directory for free. And that is some good free marketing. All right, we got to start with what's legal and how we can sell it. So I hope you all have a copy of the Farmers Market Vendor Guide. If you do not, we'll be happy to mail you one, and it is always available on our website. What's most exciting and easy to understand from our vendor guide is page 2. People always get bogged down and kind of get confused by the vendor guide, and they say it's so much information. Well, the first thing I tell them is just take a step back and let's look at page 2. If an item is in green here at the top, that means it's a non-potentially hazardous food. That means it doesn't need time or temperature control or process authority or a home kitchen inspection. And these things can be sold beyond farmers markets. Maybe it's at a local school fair or a fundraiser, or maybe you're selling custom birthday cakes from your home. These items in green are not bound by farmers market. But what's even more exciting is the items in red. Prior to the laws changing, most of these things were regulated county by county, and many of them were not allowed to be produced in a home kitchen. These do require additional registrations, trainings, and we'll talk about that. But these items down here in red can only be sold at registered farmers markets. But guess what? When the law changed, we made that definition much more friendly. Today, a registered farmers market in West Virginia can be a mobile farmers market, a traditional farmers market with tents and multiple vendors. It can be an online farmers market. It can be a roadside stand, and even more excitingly, it can be an on-farm stand. Today, anyone selling off-farm is required to register as a farmers market, which there is no cost. But this allows them to take all the advantages of these items in red. So let's talk about the more simple ones first. Non-potentially hazardous foods. If the food you are selling falls in this category, really the only regulation you have to comply with is the label. Now, I see versions of this label throughout the state every day. The one thing I can tell you is this is not a suggestion. This is the one thing that you need to be legally compliant with. And that is because we need to inform our customers. That is why this label is required. Again, I'm not going to get us bogged down in what are these food categories. Remember, these non-potentially hazardous foods do not need refrigeration. They are not acidified. They are not a shelf-stable, potentially hazardous food that has water activity. They're things like your traditional jams and jellies. What does traditional mean? That means sugar and fruit. Sugar-free, hot pepper, raspberry jalapeno, all of those types of jams fall in potentially hazardous category, which we can do at registered farmers markets with further permitting. Dried herbs and teas. We were joking earlier about how dry it's been. Well, guess what? Those dehydrated and dried herbs are legal to sell. Apple butter, not pumpkin butter. You have to remember that pumpkin butter falls under potentially hazardous because it is extremely dense and home canning equipment cannot get it up to a high enough temperature to what they consider safe. Cakes and candies, breads, tree syrups, honeys, and this one is exciting, tomatoes. So that may not seem like a super marketable product, a canned tomato, but what is one item we see at every single farmer's market in the state? Tomatoes. It is legal to sell them juice, whole or chopped. And if you look at that jar right there, that is just screaming to be branded. My goodness, do plain tomatoes need a logo? They need a farm story and a farm name behind them. One thing you could do is when we buy tomatoes at a grocery store, we have no idea the variety of tomato plant that came from. Here's a great chance to elaborate on the canned tomato. Now, I know you're all going to say to me, but I want to sell spaghetti sauce. That's what people want to buy. Well, if you want to stay in non-potentially hazardous, you can't add those ingredients inside that shelf-stable jar. But what can you do? You can brand that jar of tomato sauce with your logo. You can provide an additional bag of veggies or dried herbs that is branded and labeled the same way. You could provide a beautiful recipe for someone to go home and take your tomatoes and, as a family, maybe create a spaghetti sauce, but you've taken a lot of the work out of it. There are ways to use this as a stepping stone into a more commercial product. The reason these non-potentially hazardous foods are so easy to sell and there's no permitting or cost is to get you into the market, to have a place to sell tomatoes when they're off season. Another great example is freeze-dried. My goodness, is freeze-dried becoming popular in West Virginia? I get a call about it at least twice a week right now. The easiest way for me to explain how it is legal is if it starts non-potentially hazardous, that's how it ends. So a whole freeze-dried blueberry is legal. But if I was, let's say, going to do apple chips or cut up strawberries and freeze-dry them, I'm going to need that home kitchen inspection and that vendor permit because the cutting of that produce puts it into the potentially hazardous category. Can you do it? Absolutely, but you're going to have some additional permitting. Another thing that's been really popular with freeze-dried right now is freeze-drying brownies and baked goods, and even things like Skittles or commercially purchased candies. Again, if they're non-potentially hazardous before you freeze-dry them, that's the way they end. So each year we are updating the laws. So 2 years ago, you would not have seen the word freeze-dried in the vendor guide because this really wasn't anything people were talking about. The few people that were doing it from commercial or FDA inspected kitchens. So we had to add this category and to better understand how we can work with small producers, especially at the farmers market level. Again, you're going to use that required labeling, which we'll get to in just a second. Why are we selling these non-potentially hazardous goods? This is a chance to start developing your brand. Maybe it's a color, maybe it's a logo that describes your family. Maybe you want to focus on, I grow only heirloom tomato plants. Maybe it's teaching your customer about what is in those jars. Or it's making zucchini bread because you grew 50 zucchini plants and come August, it doesn't move that well at the farmer's market. It's about being creative and having additional sales outlets. Years ago, when I started at the farmer's market, I only had rhubarb and some sugar snap peas, and I kind of panicked, and I thought, I'm going to show up there at my very first farmer's market with a very bare table. I didn't have much of a logo. I picked a color theme. I didn't have a branded tablecloth. All I had was a little bit of produce. Well, I read back then in the vendor guide that jams were allowed. So I made some strawberry jam and I made a little logo. And I thought to myself, I'll have these 50 jars throughout the season, but at least my table won't be empty. Well, they sold in about 10 minutes. And I thought, oh my goodness, I thought people just came to these markets for produce. These jams worked. Well, a few years later, I had made over 5,000 jars of that jam and had developed my farm name and made a Facebook page back 10 years ago. And not many people did that. And I just thought it was so exciting that people could know what I'm going to bring to the farmer's market. A few years in, the name was recognizable. My products were recognizable. And I realized every week my labels needed to look the same, that my setup needed to be recognizable. It goes well beyond that logo on that jar. My entire tent had to tell my farm story. You can buy strawberry jam at Kroger's. Mine was no different and no more exciting if you didn't know what went behind it, where those strawberries came from. The fact that it was made in a home kitchen alone was pretty darn cool because that is legal. You can turn a great family recipe into something you can test at a farmer's market before making that jump into a commercial product. So that label, I get a lot of flack that this is a ton of information to put on a label. But if you go to the grocery store, this is exactly what that label looks like. The reason we have upgraded our labeling requirements here in West Virginia is it is going to be ready to move to that next step. If I want to start selling my product commercially out of the FDA inspected kitchen all across the country, all I'm going to have to do is to remove that disclaimer statement. Everything else will already be compliant. So we're going to look at it a little bit more, but let's take a quick look. Chocolate chip cookies. That is the statement of identity. What I couldn't put there is grandma's best sweet treat. Is it a cookie? What's it made of? I don't know. I have to tell the person what it is. Chocolate chip cookies. Could I add that above grandma's famous? Absolutely. Or Ohio County's own, or anything like that. We can add to this label, but the information you're seeing here, except for the picture of the cookie, we don't require a picture, is required. So of course, we're going to list our ingredients. And right below our ingredients, we're going to write our allergen statement. And we're going to say what we said one line above. Why? I get that one a lot. I just said there was soy in it, one line above this. We can never assume people read the details. And we need to make sure we inform our customer at every single level possible. And we're covering ourselves by doing this. We're going to have our address of where we're producing it and our net weight for the contents. And then, of course, we have our allergen statement. And I want everyone to know, as of January 1st, sesame was added to one of our required allergens. So you can check that in the vendor guide if you're not sure what needs to be there. All of this is in the vendor guide in writing and in picture form. But you're also going to have this little additional statement. But what I can tell you here, we're showing it that it would be an extra label. Maybe it's on top of your jam jar, on back of your bread. But it needs to say this product was made in a non-commercial kitchen that may not be subject to inspection and may contain cross-contaminant allergens not listed in the allergen statement. Wow, is that some major marketing right there? What are we saying to people? It may not be subject to inspection. The reason that sentence reads that way is if you're going to make a potentially hazardous food, let's say cut cantaloupe or a salsa from your home kitchen, you are having an inspection, but you're still a home kitchen. You're being inspected by the Department of Ag because you're selling it at a farmer's market versus being inspected by the county or the state or the FDA. And then it may contain cross-contaminant allergens. What we cannot determine is in a home kitchen that your kids didn't make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich 4 hours before you got in that kitchen. And it looks like it was wiped down, but you don't know. And then you roll dough out on that same counter. There is a chance that there would be someone with a nut allergy, and that would set them off. That would cause a reaction, and you didn't know that was there, and that's not an ingredient in your product. So if someone is highly allergic to something, seeing that label may deter them from being your customer, but that is okay. Not everyone needs to be your customer, but everyone needs to be informed. It is really, really important, and it's the law that you're including this in your food product sales. So remember, you're a real business just like any other business. And a lot of people tell me, well, it's a cottage food business, so these requirements aren't there. There is no difference than selling cookies at your home, than working on cars from your home garage, or maybe you work online from home. These are all businesses. You are required to register your business once you've hit a certain sales threshold. We absolutely suggest doing it right away. I always suggest product liability insurance. You're selling food to people, food from your home kitchen. You really want to make sure you're insured, even if it's just baked goods. You never know what the customer may say, and the burden is always on the producer. This may let you know when it's time to scale up. Maybe I don't want to sell just tomato sauce anymore. I want to sell real spaghetti sauce. Okay, I've tested the market. I've established my brand. People know my logo. They know my font. They know where I sell, and they know about my farm. Maybe this is my cue that I need to take that next step. But I've taken some time and explored my business without a big investment. And believe it or not, I don't care how small you are, this is your chance to make that true marketing plan and business plan, to create a product for the people you want to be your customers. You can take those orders online. It is an online world. If you can get a nice little Google form going and people can order without having to talk to someone on the phone, that puts you in a whole nother category. That is how people like to shop now, and that is totally legal. You can deliver, you can work with partners, consignment farmers markets, lots and lots of options for those non-potentially hazardous foods. All right, the thing everybody always wants to talk about. I want to sell all that other stuff. I want to refrigerate things. I want to make them shelf stable. I want to sell pickles, spaghetti sauce. I want to chop up my vegetables. Can I do that? Yes, you can do that from your home kitchen if you follow all these things I'm about to tell you, but it's not as difficult as you think, and you're selling them at a registered farmer's market. So let's say, you know, I've always sold eggs on farm. I grew a big garden this year. I get a lot of people coming for eggs. Maybe I should start selling produce. Maybe I want to can my tomatoes. You can register your home farm as a farmer's market and be allowed to do that. These items are on page 14 of the vendor guide, but I'll give you some basic examples here. Also, in jars with no labels, because I want you to see the potential in what could be on that jar. Your salsas, your hot sauce, your cut produce. Let me call this one out again, because I feel like enough people do not hear me. You can sell cut produce from your home kitchen. What do you need to do? You need a vendor permit, which is $35. This covers you in every county. So if you're like me up here in the Northern Panhandle, you can't be bound by one county. If you're a farmer, you're probably selling in 3 or 4 counties. Now it's only one permit. That used to be, let's say you sold frozen chicken, you had to get a permit in every county, and many counties were a different price than another one. Now it's one permit, covers you for the whole state. Let's look at a zucchini. Height of season, maybe we're getting 75 cents for a zucchini at a farmer's market. I take that same zucchini and cut it up with some yellow squash, or maybe I turn it into a zucchini noodle. I have a product that can have double the price point because I've taken some of the work out of it for my customer. A $35 permit and a food handler's card could allow you to do that. You get a home kitchen inspection, which is $27, and they are inspecting you as a home kitchen, not a commercial kitchen. We're not talking about drains in the floor or 3 basin sinks. They expect to be inspecting a home kitchen. For pickled products and acidified foods, we have some additional required steps. They have to take better process control school or a class like that, and we can talk to you about those details. You also have to get process authority, which we'll look at on the next slide. Time and temperature controlled baked goods. Here's another exciting category. Cheesecake, custard filled donuts, all those things that require refrigeration. Same procedure. You're going to get that food handler's card, that home kitchen inspection, and that vendor permit. Freeze dried produce. So I don't want to do blueberries. I want to do something I cut up. This would put you in that same category. So let's look at those requirements. Potentially hazardous food requires a $35 vendor permit. Okay, that is allowing you to sell these products. It's opening up a whole new product category. You're going to have that home kitchen inspection, the training course, which depends on what you're selling, letter of process authority. In the vendor guide, we have a list of about 14 process authorities in the United States that are actively taking customers. They're not only going to be looking at your recipe, but the process and how you make that. You'll then get a letter from them for that recipe, and that moves you on to the next step, a label review. We at the Department of Ag offer a free service to make sure your label is compliant. Of course, we want you to keep records of where you're purchasing your produce or where it's being grown. And if you are not on public water, you're on well water, you will have to show an annual well water test. Here's our food label with all the things in one place. You'll notice this company has branded themselves as the Little Pepper Company. They've added the new at the top to kind of draw your eye. They have a new product. They have very visually appealing tomatoes. But what else do they have on here? Everything that's required. We have our ingredients. This is a very interesting salsa. It contains tree nuts, but they're in there and we are informing our customer. This product was made in a non-commercial kitchen that may not be subject to inspection and may contain cross-contact allergens that are not included in the allergen statement. Look, they made it fit on the main label. I don't think it detracts from it all. It doesn't look too small. It's not too busy. So this company is not only compliant, but is very visually appealing to their customer. They've also added an email address, their Facebook. This is something you could absolutely do. Many or most of our farmers market vendors have a Facebook. Here's a place to permanently hold your logo. Here's a place to share your font and your color and pictures from your farm. It allows you to tell a story beyond that label. Remember, we need our net contents. I get a lot of bakers who get a little worried about it. Like, do I need to weigh every single cookie? Probably not. So, make a dozen, weigh 5 or 6 of them, get a consistent average, and try to stick with that size. Don't get too bogged down on some of these requirements. Remember, you're meeting FDA requirements. That's a little above and beyond what we used to see for a home vendor. So the label review. If you are making a potentially hazardous food, all that stuff in red on page 2, you are required to get a label review. Don't panic. We are just here to help you make sure that you are compliant. And the nice thing is, after that label review, we send you a certificate that says this label is proper and compliant. And then you have that. Insurance agents love to see things like that, to see that you have gone above and beyond to make sure your product is informing your customers. If you join our West Virginia Grown program, the label review is required even if you're selling non-potentially hazardous foods. They're going to review your label if you're selling eggs, because we have a requirement for that egg label. If you're selling exempt chicken, they're going to make sure you have that required label. All of those label requirements are in your vendor guide. You just got to make sure you're doing it verbatim. If you have a non-potentially hazardous food and you're not in West Virginia Grown, but you just want to make sure you're compliant, we can do that for you also. This is available on our website under Ag Business Product Labeling. Meat and eggs. Meat and eggs can be sold at farmers markets. Some of our best markets in the state have a great selection of meats. That label is not made by you. So if you're selling, unless it is exempt chicken, if you're selling USDA or WVDA inspected and legal resale meat, they're going to take care of that label. But what you can do is add an additional label like West Virginia grown. I have had producers who have gone as far as to get that certified with their USDA facility and added to their official label. Now, our exempt poultry and rabbit is a little bit more lenient. You can add to that label. So you can add your logo, maybe your West Virginia grown logo, as long as you are also including everything that we require. So that is another great option. Branding your meat. That might just be adding your logo to your sign so people can see, because all this is kept in a freezer. So the actual logo on the chicken might not be as important as the sign on the cooler or the sign that is hanging with prices on your tent. Eggs, there's our eggs again. Eggs are another chance to get creative. At the public market, we've seen many, many different types of egg cartons being sold, from reusing cartons from a grocery store to buying branded cartons, to the clear cartons with a really beautiful logo on it, to even recycled neon colored egg cartons. You wouldn't believe how much a customer will pay extra for something that is visually appealing. Now, yes, it is totally legal to reuse egg cartons. But if I'm at maybe a consignment market where I have 6 choices and I don't have the farmer right there, you know, kind of bringing in that emotion of purchasing from them, and I'm just looking at these cartons, there's 2 types of people. Some people will buy the least expensive and love that you're reusing somebody else's carton. There's the other type of person who wants to buy the really pretty neon green carton with the really pretty logo on it because they bought it at a local food store and they're like, look at this. Something so beautiful that is normally packaged like a commodity. So you can kind of tailor yourself to those types of customers, especially depending on the market you're selling to and what your price point is. But again, you must include the required information listed in the vendor guide. So I've been talking about West Virginia grown a lot, and that is what I'm really here to focus on today. If you are a vendor at a West Virginia farmers market, you need to join our program. It's free. Let me say it again. It's free. There is no reason not to join if you are really looking to market your product. This allows you to use our logo on your product, on your tent, on your sign, on your website. People of West Virginia want to support other people from West Virginia. This takes the guessing game out of it. I got to look at the back and see what city it was made in. I know this is a West Virginia grown product. It allows you to buy our marketing materials at cost. It gets you in our producer database. You want to search out what producers are in Boone County, you can get on the Department of Ag website and see what members we have in the program. It gets you in that West Virginia grown directory. We put those at tourism sites. We take them to events. I see people reading them at restaurants all the time. It's beautiful, it's informative, and it's listed by region. So people don't have to spend a lot of time reading about a farm that is 6 hours away from their home. But you know what? That's also really exciting reading, and most people like to check it all out. And it allows you to tell your farm or your business's story. It gets you in our market bulletin. I think people do not realize the reach of the WVDA's market bulletin. We print over 50,000 copies in print per month. You are getting in print 50,000 times per month by being a free member of our marketing program. That is some pretty good advertising. And we also do features on our social media and through our homesteading series on YouTube. But we have something new, and this has been a long time coming. We at the Department of Agriculture have the Veterans and Heroes to Agricultural program, which originally was to help veterans and heroes with education and networking, but we have also added the ability to be a combined member of Homegrown by Heroes and West Virginia Grown. Check out that logo. So let's say I'm at a farmer's market. Maybe it's a consignment farmer's market, and there are 6 types of honey. There's some general honey that I'm not real sure where it came from. There's some honey that maybe regional, but maybe it's out of state. And then all of a sudden, there's a honey that clearly tells me this was grown by a veteran hero and it's certified West Virginia grown. Which one am I going to pick up? That's telling a story without saying a word. That is extremely marketable to a customer. So please consider joining. Again, these are both free programs, both Homegrown by Heroes, our Veterans to Heroes program, and West Virginia Grown. But we have even more exciting news. In the past few months, we have added a partners program. So we looked at ways to get the word out about West Virginia Grown. And our membership was around 100 a few years ago, and now we're over 300. But we still needed to get the word out there better. And we decided that we needed to focus not only on the products, but where they are being sold. So now we have three categories of partners. West Virginia Grown sold here. Now, let's stop right there. This is a webinar about farmers markets. What is sold at your farmers markets? West Virginia Grown products. You as a farmers market, whether it be traditional or online or mobile, can join our West Virginia Grown program. So that allows your market to use that branding. That allows your market to be highlighted in the market bulletin. It can get you in our directory, and it allows you to put up signage that says West Virginia Grown sold here. So that is really exciting, especially for our consignment farmers markets that might have a more traditional storefront. They can include that signage maybe as end caps or at the point of sale. But this is a place where West Virginia Grown products are sold. And then we added West Virginia Grown served here. Our restaurants that are carrying certified West Virginia Grown products can now highlight that in their menu, can use that logo in their advertising. So that's really, really exciting. And then what about everybody else? What about those of us like the Farmers Market Association or the Farm Bureau or the Food and Farm Coalition, or maybe your county 4-H? We have West Virginia Grown supported here because we want to highlight all those people who are buying, selling, talking about, sharing the farm stories, whatever it might be. We want to list you as a supporter. So as farmers markets, a lot of our farmers markets have food trucks, or our consignment markets might have a restaurant within them. You could fall into all three of these partner categories, which we would love. I would love to see the triple threat. So know that we are no longer bound by those products made in West Virginia. And I do want to highlight, maybe you have something that you wouldn't have thought it's West Virginia Grown, like soap or butter or jam. West Virginia Grown goes way beyond produce. We have basket makers, candle makers, soap makers, lotion, cut flowers. You pick farms. All of these things can be branded under West Virginia Grown. I was really excited to see this one in the middle. We don't have a ton of West Virginia products with the nutritional facts panel. So this one was particularly exciting for me. Check this out, Greenbrier Dairy. There you have a federally regulated label that has the required nutritional facts panel if they're selling above that threshold. And there it is, that West Virginia Grown logo right there on the official label. So that's really exciting. You can add it to your labels, or maybe you just put it in your general branding. I have people say, well, I just sell produce. Why would I need to join West Virginia Grown? Well, one, it gets your name out there. Two, it tells us that you're selling produce that is really grown in West Virginia. But think about your clamshells. Maybe your bags that have your lettuce in them could use a sticker or a logo on there. Maybe it's just on your sign. You still have lots of options. A few years ago, I worked with an herb grower. She just sold herbs and they weren't selling very well at the farmer's market. She was using rubber bands like most people do and just putting it in glass jars, and it just didn't have a lot of visual appeal. And we talked about it, and we were talking about how her favorite color was purple. And I said, well, maybe you should just run with it. Purple tablecloth, purple logo, let's just do it. What she started doing was she was tying a piece of purple yarn, as cheap as it could be, as simple as it could be, to each bundle. In a few weeks, she was selling 2 or 3 more times herbs at the farmer's market, and it kind of became her thing. And what we noticed was people were taking pictures for Instagram, And you know what looks so pretty on the top of that pile of things she bought? The beautiful little thing of basil that had the pretty purple bow. It could be something that simple. So no matter what your product is, even maybe if you're selling plants, you could add a sticker to that pot, cut flowers, maybe branding the paper that you wrap those flowers in. There's always an opportunity to carry the name and the idea of your business beyond that point of sale. References. I know that was a lot of information, and I'm sure we'll share this all with you, but please know just about every single thing I talked about is right there in the vendor guide. West Virginia grown application is actually in there, the vendor permit, and these are also all available on our website. So that leaves us with a little over 10 minutes for questions, and I'm sure we have some. Let me take the PowerPoint off.
Thank you so much, Casey. That was excellent. Yes, we will definitely send the presentation out, and or did oh, sorry, everything just disappeared. We'll send out the presentation and have all of those links available, and I will include them on our ongoing resource list. We did have one question about freeze-dried ice cream.
Okay, whew, that one's a hot topic. All right, freeze-dried ice cream. Need to contact Stacy, our farmers market coordinator. It does require a vendor permit. You got dairy there. So it's starting potentially hazardous. It needed time and temperature control. So it's going to end that way. Can you get a permit to do it? Yes, but you're going to need the home kitchen inspection. You're going to need that $35 vendor permit and your food handler's card. And Stacy's contact information is in the vendor guide. And she can help you with all of those details. I also see some other questions on here. Can we advertise West Virginia grown in our market if some of our produce comes from Ohio? Yes. 95% of our farmers markets have vendors from multiple states and all over, some even international. So example, like your consignment farmers markets, like the Wild Ramp, they have products from Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, Virginia. Our requirement is that you have at least one, we kept it low because we want to make sure we can get people in there, at least one certified West Virginia grown vendor at your market, or at least one certified West Virginia grown member on your restaurant menu, or that you sell within your store. So absolutely, we totally understand that we are a regional kind of area. I saw one more question here. When is the next Better Process Control School course? In person? Small Farms Conference Week is when it usually is. There are some online options, but I will tell you, it is much more economical to take it when we have it here in West Virginia. What else? That can't be all the questions. What do we got? Hey, can I have a show of hands of people who are on here who are already West Virginia grown members? I'm just curious. Can you give me a little hands up reaction? Okay, I see one in the chat. So look at all this potential. Connie, you're a member? Denise, aren't you a member? Maybe not. Well, look at all this potential we have in the room. Yes, Connie, okay. I really, really encourage you to think about it, especially if you are working with a store. There we got another one. When is Small Farms Conference Week? Lisa?
And I'll go ahead and write it in the chat as well, but it will be February 21st through the 24th, 2024 in Charleston at the Charleston Coliseum and Convention Center. So the 21st is only food safety day. So there's only two things happening that day. They're both food safety certifications. And then the regular conference itself is the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, end of February. Oh, here's another question. I'm using a commercial kitchen for production. Do I need anything else other than a vendor permit for hazardous products?
That depends on what you're selling. Can I get a what we're selling? It's always a that depends. I know that's the worst answer.
And if you all want to come off of mute, you can.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you want to ask questions, or if you're more comfortable putting things in the chat, that's perfectly fine as well.
Hi, I'm Sarah Loftus. I asked a question about the commercial kitchen. I'm thinking about some jams and jellies that are blended
Okay.
versus you know,
Okay, so
single.
you're saying they might have like a pepper or something that makes them potentially hazardous.
Right.
Okay, so you will not have to pay for that vendor permit because you're going to have a food establishment permit from your county health department. And they're going to require you to also take a class. And they're also going to require that process authority. But what you won't have to do is pay for that permit. You'll get that vendor permit if you're selling at a farmer's market, but because you've already paid for a higher level permitting, you wouldn't have to. Hopefully that
Okay,
answers
perfect.
your question.
Yeah.
We got another one in the chat box here. No? Okay.
Catherine, I see you have your hand raised. Do you want to come off mute and go ahead and ask your question?
Oh, no, that was
Member.
me saying that I was West Virginia grown member.
Oh,
Which is
okay.
I'm
wonderful.
sorry, I can lower my hand. I'll lower.
You're fine, you're fine. So
I'm
I
just
also
saving
want to
it.
mention, I think a lot of restaurants and stores, because when I tell them they're eligible, like I'm seeing their minds just be blown. If you're selling into a store or a restaurant, suggest to them that they join. They probably aren't realizing that they can be members now. This is only a few months old. We're going to do an official kickoff on July 13th at the public market in Wheeling. We're going to do kind of a press conference and a tasting to show how this could be utilized at stores and restaurants.
Donna asked, I have labels that were okayed years ago for jams and jellies. Should I have them re-reviewed?
If they were being produced in a home kitchen and you were having them reviewed as at the time it was considered just a cottage food, yes. Because at that time, home-based foods didn't require the allergen statement to be separate on there. And that disclaimer sentence has changed. It has unfortunately gotten a little bit longer, but it's a lot better for our customers. So I absolutely suggest if you're selling non-potentially hazardous, know that you're not required to have that review and you could just go by your vendor guide, but why not get it? Why not get something that says this is correct and know that you've covered your bases? So if it is more than 3-year-old label review for a home-based food product, I do suggest looking at your label again. I see a lot of those old labels. We noticed just recently that DHHR still has their vendor guide online and they have not been the regulatory authority for about 5 years, and their required sentence is still online if you stumble upon it, and it is not what is currently the legal requirement. There is only one, so I see a lot of misinformation online. I found a website the other day, some private website that was like, want to learn about West Virginia laws? It was so off. This was not a government website. This wasn't through Extension. This was a private entity. Know that there's really only one guide. Go to the Department of Ag page to make sure you're looking at the right thing because nothing disappears online. And as things change, it tends to take a really long time for them to go away. Anything else? Use Canva. Canva is your friend. I know this really isn't my category of things to talk about, but I am telling you, Canva will change your life if you're really trying to brand your business.
Is the food safety training course that didn't have a lot of interest, is that the one at Blue Ridge Community Technical College?
No, so if it's potentially hazardous food and it's not shelf stable, you just get a food handler's card. And if you're doing a shelf stable acidified food, let's say like a salsa or a pickle, you take better process control school. This is a 2-day class. It's not any like course at a university or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
Lisa, do you know what she might be referring to? I'm not really sure.
There was a food safety.
It's the FSMA training, Kacey.
Oh, so
Yes.
that is for produce production. That is food safety training on farm and for packing and that type of thing. It is not for those value-added food products.
Okay. I'll sign up for the next course if you have it.
I'll send it to you when it becomes available.
Thank you.
I encourage you to do both if you're depending on what you actually produce. The FSMA class is really good just to really analyze what you produce off of your farm, assuming you're producing like you're in production and farming something. And then if you are specifically doing a value added product that falls under acidified foods, then you definitely want to take that class. But in general, the FSMA class is really useful to analyze your own business and it's highly, highly recommended. recommended.
Yes, and sometimes it helps meet buyer requirements too.
And it's going to teach you to keep those required records that are going to be required for that potentially hazardous food. Like that's what I got out the most of it, was how to keep really good records and understand why and how that's so relevant to whatever you're doing beyond picking it on your farm.
And you do get a nice little certificate from the class. So if you decide that right now you're only selling at farmers markets and you decide to start selling to restaurants, you can say, hey, my farm has a food safety plan. Here's the class that I went through. And not that they necessarily say this is required, but it does give the buyers that additional assurance that you're taking all of the precautions to make sure their customers are also safe.
Great, thank you.
Oh, Canva, that is an app. That is an online app for making flyers, labels, logos, Facebook posts. It lets you have a consistent brand, a font, and everything else. Oh, Lisa dropped the link there. It's a lot easier than like Adobe or some of those older programs to make labels. This allows you to make sure everything you put out there looks the same, from your flyer to your posters, to your sign, to the label on your product, to your Facebook posts. And FSMA is the Food Safety Modernization Act, and that is for produce. Keeping safe on farm, like keeping clean and tracking and packing and the right temperatures, all those types of things.
And if Canva is something that people want to go through at some point, we could definitely offer a little training, like a walkthrough tutorial. Granted, they do have their own tutorials on their website, but just in case anybody ever needs a little more like hands-on TA with that, that's something we can definitely offer. And not that I'm going to volunteer you, Deb, but what you produce for your farm using Canva is absolutely amazing. So I'm not going to volunteer you, but at the same time, I would highly recommend people chat with Deb if you ever need an example of just the absolutely incredible labels that you can make from your own farm. Throwing it out there. They're beautiful. Deb, I love your labels. Throwing them out.
Look at
Just
all
saying.
this yay for Canva in the chat box. It does this great thing. So I just made a brand for my little girl's farm a couple years ago, and it asks you questions in the beginning, like, what are 3 values of your business? Which was so interesting. I thought, how could values turn into a logo? And what colors are most appealing to you? It kind of walks you through the process, and that is just so cool.
Is Canva a free program online, or?
They have a free version. It's good. It's not amazing like the paid version. I think it's worth every single penny of getting the paid version. You can get a great discount for buying it for a year. You could try the free version for a couple months and upgrade. It doesn't have a lot of the downloaded photo options, but you can do most of the stuff. And if you're just looking for something very basic to get you started, there is a free version. And if you are a registered nonprofit, you can get Canva for free. So maybe your farmer's market, your association is a nonprofit, then you don't have to worry about the cost. And I think you can have 5 or more users. Don't quote me on that, but it's a lot more than 1.
I think it's 10. Right.
Maybe it is 10. It's a good amount, especially if you're a small organization. That should be fine.
Well, it is 1 o'clock, so I do want to be very conscientious of everyone's time and say, if you want to ask additional questions, please do so now. But if not, this is officially the end of our first session. So thank you so much, Kacey, for giving us your wonderful presentation today. Thank you, Holly, for being here and helping keep track of the people that are in attendance. Thank you all. Oh my gosh, there we go. Deb stuff in the chat. Thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate it. Again, this is the first of 6 sessions that we're going to do. Try and attend as many as you can, and that way you're eligible for those mini grants. I'll send some follow-up details as we go along. But again, if you have questions, let me know. If not, officially adjourned. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again.